Hello everybody, welcome to episode 158 of Short Viewers. Today we'll be going over episode 10 of Daemons of the Shadow Realm. So this episode starts directly where we left off in the previous episode, where we see as Tenaga and Ashinaga are starting to emerge from the waters. But yeah, so we see as they're slowly introduced, and we learn that right and left, as we did in actually the previous episode, have a history with these people. And we learn that the history that they have with them is around 1200 years prior. Right and left were under the, their master was a twin, and therefore he had the ability of seal. And one day they were traveling around, I believe it was Mount Bandai, current day Mount Bandai, and they interacted with Tanagi and Ashinaga, Tenaga and Ashinaga, where ultimately they were ended up sealed by the monk into the, mountain of Mount Bandai because it's a volcano. But they were sealed there. But now a new master has come and broken that seal, so they are free to roam and attack whoever. Well, obviously under the command of their master. But yeah, so then as this is going on, we also get to see as Yuru and Tadera ultimately end up interrogating the one woman who survived from among the goons who had been tracking them down after leaving the Kagemori clan. And we learned that, in fact, she is under the recruitment of Asuma Kagemori. Now, finally, Asuma is proving to be a little bit more of a integral part to the story. Because I knew there was something odd with him. I knew that he was too suspicious to not really have any connection at all to the rest of the story. But yes, in fact, Asuma has been searching for them. And this is because he wants to have control over the twins. And so he's been searching for them, and he sent this group to watch over Yuru and Tadera, and they were actually informed not to attack Yuru. But yeah, so they were being tracked by Asuma. We actually get a brief look at Asuma chilling with these two demons. They almost look like which we call Shikigami from Death Note. But yeah, so we get a brief panel of that. That'll probably be the thumbnail because it's honestly really cool looking. But yeah, so then after that we begin to get into the major fight between right, left, and Tenaga and Ashinaga. So before this fight, we see as they ultimately end up asking about if who is the master of right and left, because they know that the master of right and left likely has the ability of seal, because that's how right and left work. And ultimately, Tadera, to keep the focus off of Yuru, ends up revealing that, I am the one who is their master. So we see as they end up hunting him down and all of that, but ultimately we see as right and left begin to fight him, and right and left aren't doing that great of a job against him. And we see as Dara is continuing to have to run around and escape and evade Tenaga and Ashinaga. And ultimately this allows him to acquire some guns. He ends up shooting at him, but it doesn't really do too much damage with his pistol. But then he ends up actually being able to get into his storehouse, where he's able to grab a hunting rifle of some sort. And we see as this progresses on, right and left are still having quite a bit of trouble with Tenaga and Ashinaga because they can't seal Tenaga and Ashinaga. But yeah, so we see this, and then ultimately Dara is actually able to shoot them from a distance with his hunting rifle, and he's able to blow out both the eyes of Long Leg. I think Long Leg was Tenaga, or it might have been Ashinaga. I'm not for certain. But yeah, he's able to blow both of their eyes out, and then we see as he's able to blow the leg off, the leg portion, but the leg portion, around the hip area of the long arm one, whatever that one is. But yeah, so we see this, and then ultimately right and left are able to put a little bit more of a beat down on them. They end up throwing them, and once they get thrown, we see as they end up spinning together and end up forming this ultimate amalgamation where we have long arm on top, being able to use their long arm abilities, and long leg on bottom, being able to use leg abilities. And since long leg doesn't have eyes, long arm acts as the one who has the eyes, acts as the head of the body. So we see after having formed this Megazord creation, they begin to once again hunt down the people. And we see then as they are able to grab the old woman, and she ends up revealing that Dara is in fact not the person who has a seal, or at least the one with the potential to acquire seal. And she ends up revealing that it's actually a kid who's around here, and they end up spotting Yuru after Yuru ends up saving the old lady by throwing an axe, which then cuts the tendons in the arm so that they drop her. And so we then see as they begin to pursue Dara, because Dara in fact does admit to being the one who can use seal, and ultimately he tells right and left to not move until he commands him to do so. So we see as ultimately they chase him down, they keep chasing him. We go through pretty decently long chase sequence until ultimately they end up throwing a tree at Dara, and he's unable to recover from this, and he ends up laying on the ground. They end up standing over him, and they're like, we're going to kill you now. And ultimately they end up noticing that Yuru in fact raises his hand in the air, and so they end up hesitating off this. They're like, wait, hold up, they told us that the kid had not yet had Seal and had not yet acquired Seal, and how he only had the potential for it. And they also told us that he wasn't the one with this ability prior, at least the master of right and left prior. So is this a double lie? So we see then as Yudu raises his hand in the air and opens it. No, he closes and then opens, yeah. And so we see this, and they presume that, he's about to use Seal. So they freak out, and this gives enough time for right and left to then get the notion and come in and start beating the crap out of Tanaga and Ashinaga. And we actually get to see their, like, beast spiritual form, and it's really cool, because I really love, like, that astral, ethereal form. And so we see they end up putting the beat down on him pretty bad. We see as, I believe it's Long Arm is thrown him back in the water, and we see as the left ends up turning into her, like, statue form and just sitting on him, or them, and drowning them. And then we see as Tadera actually is responsible for killing Long Legs, because he ends up blowing its neck off, essentially decapitating it. And then we see as nothing is left behind of them besides their relics. So they still were unable to find the master, because Yudu was looking for the master prior to having revealed himself as the bearer of Seal, and they were still unable to find the master of these two demons. So they're still out there somewhere. We don't know where. They're likely still in the Lost House realm, which is where all this has gone down, in the Tadera Daemon, or the Tadera clan Daemon. So I'm really ready to see what happens with them. I wonder if they're just going to starve to death in the Lost House, or whatever it's called, like all the other people that are there. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so we see after this, we've mentioned about how Asa has to, I believe it's open her hand and then close it to commit break, or to, I guess, cast break. There we go. That's the correct word. And so we see that's why Yudu ended up doing the opposite of it, because he's like, I presume that would be a Seal, and it was. He made a correct guess. And Dara mentioned about how it would have been really crazy if he could have used Seal there. It would have been very astounding. But ultimately, Yudu, in fact, did not use Seal. And so after this, we see as everyone's like kind of gets together, communicates, speaks over the thing, and that's really where the episode ends. No, sorry. They end up speaking, and then ultimately, while they're speaking, we see as Left ends up snatching a butterfly out of the air, and she reveals that this is in fact the Daemons that we were sensing. And this Daemon is a butterfly, which is revealed by the old lady to be Asuma's daemon. But it's a multitude of daemons, because if one butterfly dies, Asuma's not really affected. So he's been keeping the tabs on them by using these butterflies. And that is how he ended up tracking them down with the three people and getting to the Lost House and all of that. Yeah, that's what that really was for episode 10 of Daemons of the Shadow Realm. Now, I'm really ready to see where this goes, because I'm really ready to see if we end up interacting with the master of Tanaga and Ashinaga. I'm ready to see how Asuma, like, what Asuma's goal is, because Asuma's still kind of a nebulous character. Like, we don't know, like, what we're going to get from him, because we don't really know that much about Asuma. I'd say out of the Kagemori brothers, he's the one that we know the least about. But yeah, so I'm really ready to see what happens with that, and I know we're growing close to the end of the season. Like I said, I don't know if it'll be a 12-episode season, but I presume it would be, because most modern-day anime are 12-episode seasons. But yeah, so I'm ready to see where that goes. We only got 2 episodes left, and I'm ready to see where we're headed with that. But yeah, like I said, that was all there really was for episode 10 of Daemons of the Shadow Realm, and that's all I really have for episode 158 of Show For You. So thank you very much for watching.